We'll begin in 10.
Good evening. The school board meeting for December 13th, 2016 is now in session. We would like to thank all of you who are in attendance with us in person or watching the meeting from another location for investing your time and energy to join us. We appreciate and applaud your commitment to partnering with us in support of our schools, our students, our staff, and our community. While the board and Brevard Public Schools staff members are fully committed to doing our best to ensure excellence in Brevard Public Schools, we know that our success depends heavily on an engaged and committed community to work alongside us and help us to continually improve. Thank you for being active participants in the process. Pam, roll call, please.
Mrs. Belford?
Present.
Mr. Craig?
Present.
Mrs. Deskovich?
Present.
Mr. Susan? And Mr. Ziegler?
Present.
At this time, I would like to ask for a moment of silence for a member of our BPS family that recently passed away, Giovanni Byrne, a student from the Palm Bay High School Adult Education Center. Our thoughts remain with his family and friends. This evening, we have two students from Fair Glen Elementary to assist with the pledge and invocation. Sixth grade student Roland Connor will read the invocation, and Brooke Murphy, also a sixth grader, will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I ask that you both remain at the podium when you're done so we have an opportunity to learn more about you. Roland and Brooke, if you'd like to go to the podium. All right, Roland, go ahead.
In November, Fair Glen Elementary celebrated its 50th anniversary. This year also happens to be the 50th anniversary of the airing of How the Grinch Stole Christmas. It was shown for the first time on December 18th, 1966. Tonight, I'd like to share a portion of the story with you, as it conveys a message I'm sure many of us could use as a reminder and can probably be applied to whatever holiday one celebrates this season. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet, ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could this be so? It came without ribbons, it came without tags, it came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he puzzled 3 hours until his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more.
Brooke?
Will everybody please stand? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, in liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. So, Brooke, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I like to play with Legos, and when I go home, I take a walk or I ride my bike, and I love to read and listen to music.
Okay, excellent. Who's your favorite author?
J.K. Rowling.
Good one. And what kind of music do you like to listen to?
Usually pop, or maybe a little bit of jazz sometimes.
Interesting. Very good. And I see on here that you have some pets. Tell us about them.
Well, I have a dog named Duke. I have 3 cats. Their names are Precious, Dozer, and Milo. And I have a lizard named Leah, and my dad has a fish.
So I have to ask, because I also have a lizard. What type of lizard do you have?
It's a leopard gecko.
Ah, very nice. Ours is a bearded dragon. Leopard geckos are pretty cool, though. All right. So what do you enjoy most about your school?
How everybody's kind to each other, and the teachers and faculty help each other out to make the students succeed.
And we saw that displayed very much at the anniversary celebration, so thank you. That's a great thing to point out. What would you like to change about your school, if anything?
If I could change one thing about our school would be I would have to ask for more clubs because, like an art sculpting club, because we don't really do that much in art. And so I like to get the opportunity to make more stuff.
Great. Dr. Dunkel, you got notes on that? Awesome. All right. And do you have any family members with you here tonight?
I have my dad with me here.
Excellent. Dad, would you stand so we can recognize you? Very good. Thank you very much, Brooke. All right, Roland, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, when I go home, I'm usually probably in front of a screen. I'm a huge gaming person.
Thank you for your honesty. We appreciate that. Not working on homework, huh?
I get it done.
Very good. And I see, according to your teacher, you do a pretty good job on it because you have been pretty successful academically. So how do you manage to balance your desire for gaming and your commitment to doing well academically?
Well, it's pretty hard. I just select a time. If I'm way too distracted, either someone will remind me to start my homework or I will start it as soon as I get home.
Okay, good practice, good practice. All right, and what do you like to do other than gaming?
Well, I really like to draw personally. I like drawing Steven Universe, a cartoon, lots of cartoon characters.
Excellent. And I see here that you have a special talent when it comes to the piano. What is that?
Oh, I could play by ear.
So you just pick it up like that, huh?
Yeah, I just listen to songs and play the notes.
Excellent. All right. And what do you like most about your school, Roland?
All of the clubs. They are really fun to be in and participate.
Okay. And what clubs do you participate in?
I participate in National Elementary Honor Society, Music Club, Strings, and Orff Ensemble.
Okay. Wonderful. So you're a busy kid. And if there was anything that you could change about your school, what would that be?
I don't know. I do love art myself, so I'm going to have to go with Brooks. An art club would be really fun.
Okay. There we have it. Art club coming to Fairglen, Dr. Dunkel. Just bring your art teacher into the loop on that. All right. Roland, do you have any family with you tonight?
I have my grandpa and my papa.
All right. Grandpa and Papa, would you like to stand so we can recognize you? Wonderful. Roland and Brooke, thank you so much for joining us this evening and for leading us in the invocation and pledge. We appreciate it. You can go ahead and return to your group. Prior to the board meeting, we've had the pleasure of listening to the Fairglen Music Club under the direction of music instructor Kimberly Haggard. The students will perform one more number. However, please give us just a few moments for the board to move to the front so we can enjoy your performance as well. Thank you so much for joining us this evening and for your wonderful performance. For those of you in the audience, we are going to take a quick break so that the students can gather their belongings, and then we will resume the meeting. Another round of applause for Meeting is back in session. Before we move further, I would like to offer my fellow board members the opportunity to recognize staff, students, or community members. Mr. Craig.
Thank you. I got a couple. First of all, I think it was Wednesday, got to spend the morning at Madison Middle School, up in your neck of the woods there, Ms. Belford, for Space Day. And I'd like to thank Sherry Tomlinson and her entire team. They put on an awesome Space Day presentation. Kim Bragg from ESF here, science resource teacher, coordinated quite a bit of it. Invited Bob Springer, astronaut, also Naval Academy, class of 64, go Navy, to speak to the students. Great program throughout the day. They got a chance to meet, talk to an astronaut, talk about engineering, then go into the classroom, build rockets, launch them outside. Really, really cool, cool day. So thanks to Harris Corporation as well for their sponsorship of Space Week, actually, and I was able to go to Madison. Second of all, if you notice, I'm wearing my black and orange today. The Cocoa High Tigers, state champions, the Class 4A football champions. And the message that I sent, if you got to watch that game, it was phenomenal. Just a really fun game to watch. The message that I sent to you afterwards to both Principal Sullivan and to Coach Wilkinson was, while the game was awesome to watch, and certainly they should be proud of the fact that they won the championship, the way the players handled themselves in their both on-field and off-field was simply fantastic. The way they represented Brevard made me proud. I was thrilled to see so many Cocoa community members there. And then the players, the way that they represented the school and the community was fantastic. Bruce Judson, Javian Hawkins, if you watch their interviews on Florida Today, that's what it's about. They talk about respect, they talk about pride, they talk about community, and that is the future of Brevard County. So very, very proud of them, and thank you to both Principal Sullivan, Coach Wilkinson, the entire Cocoa High staff for their leadership, the tone at the top that feeds down to our students and our student leadership, both in athletics and throughout the entire organization. So congrats to Cocoa High. And you'd say, John, how do you get a tie like this, right? How do you get a Cocoa High tie? Well, thanks to Mr. Ziegler and a bunch of other people like Glenn Outlaw, who was the 2016 Volunteer of the Year from last year's ABC Awards, the Tie It Together program. This was from when we visited Cocoa High. You all visited, I believe it was in the paper this week, you visited Jackson Middle School. Great article and a great feedback from the community, a great outreach and community partnership. So thanks to Glenn and all of the men who participate in that. Thanks to you, Mr. Ziegler, as well, and Dr. Blackburn, I believe you were there as well. So thank you very much for reaching out through them. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Susan.
I had the honor to be over at Johnson Middle School and under Fish, and Harris had the same type presentation over there. And one of the greatest things is I walked into the room to watch what they were actually teaching. And the guy says, hi, I'm from Harris, and I've seen aliens. And I looked at him like, this is the presentation that they were doing. But the rest of it that was going on was just absolutely phenomenal. They had all the kids engaged in multiple different facets throughout the entire school, and Ms. Kaminsky that was working with Harris did a great job. And she wasn't related to you, Judd. I saw you in the stands. She's not related to you. I asked her, so thank you.
Very good. Anyone else? Mr. Ziegler.
Sure. I also got to participate in Space Day at Central Middle School. Thank you to Greg Potter for the invitation. But Mr. Craig, I'm not sure what kind of rockets you were launching that you had to go outside. We launched ours inside, so you must have got the real rockets. We had the straw rockets, and we were trying to shoot them in a bucket, but the kids were just so engaged in trying to adjust their rockets for their flight path and figuring out what changes had what effects, and it was just amazing to see the kids engaged. So thank you to Harris and the Foundation for doing that. Also need to give a very big, important shout out to Mark Langdorf, our Director of Risk Management, our staff, superintendent, the board, the Superintendent's Insurance Advisory Committee for approving Brevard Public Schools clinics, which open tomorrow. I visited it and did a tour today, and the place is beautiful. It's right out here in the parking lot. And the staff from Marathon was amazed that by 1 o'clock today, there were already 8 appointments for tomorrow. They said that's huge for a first day. So clearly our employees are excited about that. I am one of the 8. I just had to be there on opening day. So I've got this, Doc, I'm just going to go for healthcare assessment. But really exciting. I'm willing to bet we have more appointments than that, and can't wait till we open the rest of them. And all of our employees have access to great health care at no additional cost. So thank you to staff and Mark Langdorf for the great job.
And Mr. Craig, I think you had a follow-up.
Sorry, thank you. It jogged my memory. The Brevard Schools Foundation announced today that they are in the top 10 of all schools foundations in the country, so number 8, which is pretty amazing. The only other Florida school foundation that is ranked is Pinellas, they are number 1. So number 1, we're number 8, and that's in the entire country. Pretty phenomenal. We've got a great Brevard Schools Foundation, does great work for the district, so thank you to Janice Kershaw and their entire organization.
Ms. Deskovich?
Well, it's not a specific student, but the entire class at Miss Brown at Vieira High's class. I've been their GAA teacher for the last 7 weeks, and we wrapped up today. And they're a bright, rambunctious group of children that I think we learned a lot, and we've had a great experience over the last 7 weeks. So a shout out to the JA program for what they're doing, for the students, for being engaged and putting up with me. And we've had a good time. And then a shout out to all the principals in District 3 because I've reached out to meet with them, and they've all responded quickly and invited me to tour their schools. It's going to take me a few weeks to get through them all, but I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. All right, I have just a few I will throw out there before we move on. The tie day that was referenced at Jackson, wanted to point out that that was actually a professional day, and this year they incorporated both the girls and the boys in the program, and so while you and Dr. Blackburn were in the gym doing ties along with your male counterparts, the administration at Jackson and specifically the person coordinating the program had actually arranged for 31 professional women to come in and meet with the girls at the school as well. So every female student at the school, they were broken up into groups of interest areas, and they all had professional female leaders from the community that came in and spoke to them, and they all received scarves. So very nice. Want to make sure that we take a look at that as well. Tie Day, obviously, we have seen for a couple of years now. It's been phenomenal. I hear that some of the girls at Jackson were wearing their scarves for several days after that event as well. So what a great way to show them how to strive for the best. So congratulations to Ms. Jones and her staff for that wonderful event. Joined Mr. Ziegler at Central and actually stopped by Madison as well for their Space Day, and certainly a huge thank you to Harris for the amazing partner that they are in education in our area, and also a huge thank you to the Space Foundation, which is who came down and actually did the curriculum, and of course Colonel Springer for the presentations. He was a hit with all of the kids for certain. Also want to give a shout out to our student services staff and the various folks that assisted them. Was able to attend one of the focus groups on our discipline plan, I guess we're calling it now, as opposed to a matrix. I attended one of their forums where they had multiple community members that came in, parents and different individuals from the community. We had law enforcement, we had you name it, they were there to represent and give input on that plan, which I think was incredibly important, and the staff all did a phenomenal job of organizing and making sure it went smoothly, capturing the feedback, and considering that for action as we move forward. So I know Dr. Theddy and her team have kind of spearheaded that effort, but there were also many other employees that were there to support and make sure it went smoothly. So thank you to all of them. One big thank you that I want to throw out there also to the Schools Foundation, but specifically to Janice Kershaw. I was able to join her last week at the state conference for all of the state school foundations. Out at Kennedy Space Center, they had a reception at the Visitor Center. And I did not know it when I went, but this is the first time that that conference has been hosted here in Brevard County. And everyone that I spoke with was just beaming over the amazing job that Janice had done in coordinating that and providing really a meaningful and enjoyable experience for all of the attendees. So kudos to her. And then my very last one, I had the opportunity yesterday through the Kennedy Space Center education staff to join Coquina Elementary out at the Visitor Center for a screening of the movie Hidden Figures, which focuses on the important contributions of African American women in the space program. Wasn't able to stay for the whole thing. Looks like it's going to be a great movie though, so when it comes out to the general public, I encourage you to see it. And of course, want to thank them for providing the opportunity for our students. And that's all I have. Anyone else with a follow-up? Okay. That brings us to the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Blackburn.
Mrs. Belford and members of the board, on tonight's agenda, we have administrative staff recommendations, 2 recognition items, 1 proclamation, 2 presentations, 29 consent items, 2 action items, and 6 information items. You also have the yellow supplemental agenda, which are changes made to the agenda since being released to the public. There are revisions to item A8 on administrative staff recommendations, 3 consent additions, item F25 on enhancement for non-bargaining personnel 2016-2017, item F26 on 2016-2017 collective bargaining agreement between the School Board of Brevard County and the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, Local 1010, and item F27 on 2016-2017 collective bargaining agreement between the School Board of Brevard County and the Brevard Federation of Teachers. There were revisions to the consent item F26 on 2016-2017 collective bargaining agreement between the School Board of Brevard County and the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, Local 1010, and to action item G45 on purchasing solicitations.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Ziegler, second by Mr. Craig. Any discussion? Please vote. Yay, and thank you to Ms. Church for making sure that we can actually vote. Appreciate that. Motion passes 5-0. Dr. Blackburn, will you please let us know about the administrative staff recommendations?
Thank you, Mrs. Belford. On tonight's agenda, there are 3 administrative staff personnel members for the board to consider.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Please vote. Passes 5-0. Dr. Blackburn?
I would like to take this opportunity to welcome and recognize Jason Lobley on his reclassification and transfer from the position of Certified Behavior Analysis to Coordinator of Student Services.
Good evening, Dr. Blackburn, Mrs. Belford, board members. Thank you for this opportunity to accept the position for Coordinator for Student Services. I've been a Brevard County resident since 1979. I attended Gemini Elementary, Hoover Junior High School, and graduated from Melbourne High. I'm very passionate about serving my community, and I'm thrilled to take this opportunity on. I'm here with my 10-year-old daughter, Kylan, and my wife, Heather. I have a 7-year-old son who wasn't able to make it tonight due to his hectic social schedule. He has a chorus appointment tonight, so he wasn't able to make it. But and I also like to thank Dr. Boberski and Dr. Theddy for their leadership, mentorship, and guidance through this, and especially the opportunity for this. So thanks again, and thanks.
Congratulations to Tanza Connolly on her reclassification and transfer from the position of guidance counselor at Eau Gallie High School to the position of assistant principal at Vieira High School.
Good evening. Thank you, board and Dr. Blackburn, for this opportunity to be the assistant principal at Vieira High School. I want to thank my daughter and my boyfriend Colin for all their support through this journey. Mr. Solomon, it has been a pleasure working with you since 2004. Your leadership and encouragement is second to none, without a doubt. But it is time to pick up that anchor and move to Vieira High School under the leadership of Mr. Alba, and I look forward to serving the community there. Like Jason, I have been in this community for many years. I went to Surfside, Delora, and Satellite. And so I look forward to continue to work in Brevard County and serve the community. Thank you.
Next is congratulations to Kelly Bombriant from the position of literacy coach at Bayside High School to the position of assistant principal at Bayside High School.
Good evening. I'd like to thank Dr. Blackburn and the board for this opportunity to learn and grow. I'd like to thank Chris for always supporting me and encouraging me with my leadership skills, and of course my lovely family for always giving me the time to complete the long list of goals I've set for myself. So thank you.
congratulations to all of you. I must say, it's very nice to hear that Brevard grows such great leaders, and we can keep them here in our district to continue giving back. So thank you for your commitment to do that. Not that we don't appreciate people who come in from outside of Brevard, because they are important as well, but we have to be proud of those leaders that we create internally, too. Dr. Blackburn, please tell us about the first recognition item on this evening's agenda.
Mrs. Belford and members of the board, the first item is to recognize the media specialists, principals, and media assistants from the 8 schools who are recipients of this year's Florida Power Library School Awards. Media resource teacher Gina Clark will facilitate this presentation.
Good evening, members of the board and Dr. Blackburn. Tonight's Florida Power Library School recognition is a testament to the powerful library media programs that we have here in Brevard. The Florida Department of Education and the Florida Association of Supervisors of Media have proudly supported this award since 2009. The program highlights outstanding library media programs that are fully integrated into their school-wide program. Schools that apply for this award are systematically evaluated over the course of a school year. Award recipients must provide portfolio evidence of outstanding performance in 6 categories. Awardees must demonstrate high performance through collaboration, strong instructional practice, program management, and include reflection on practice that builds strong, modernized programs that meet 21st century teaching and learning needs of our students. Currently, Brevard has earned 60 of the 108 Florida Power Library schools given across the state since the award program began in 2009. That's 60 for Brevard out of 108 that went to the rest of the state. We are very proud to present the 2016-17 Florida Power Library School Awards. Mrs. Belford and Dr. Blackburn, if we would be kind enough to come down and present the awards. Honorees, when your name is called, please come up and receive your award and remain standing for a group picture. It is our absolute pleasure to recognize the 2016 Florida Power Library School awardees. They are Media Specialist Marcy Cipoletti, Media Assistant Elisa Seifert, and Andrew Jackson Middle School Principal Anitha Jones. Media Specialist Virginia Campbell, Media Assistant Casey Wansa, and Jupiter Elementary Principal Sherry Truisi. Our renewal awards are Media Specialist Tricia Kublank, Media Assistant Maureen Smith, and Assistant Principals Shannon Daly and Manatee Elementary Principal Carl Brown. Media Specialist Julie Cook, Media Assistant Jamie Caro, and Palm Bay Magnet High Principal Judd Kaminsky. Media Specialist Sarah Alloys, Media Assistant Jennifer Jackson, and Satellite High School Principal Mark Elliott. Media Specialist Beth Wareham, Media Assistant Beth Centino, and Saturn Elementary Principal Dr. Michael Miller. Media Specialist Samantha McGill, and Sea Park Elementary Principal Ina Liba. Media Specialist Rebecca Sherry, Media Assistant Amanda Peters, and West Melbourne School for Science Principal Dr. Nalefra Marshall. Congratulations to all. Thank you.
Congratulations to all of our award recipients. Mr. Susan, I think you had a comment?
So I was over at Manatee Elementary the other day, and I ran into Ms. Kublank, and I wanted to honor, say congratulations for everything that they said. And I actually looked at the rubric for this award, and it is one of the toughest awards to get. And if you look at it online, there's what looked like 3 actual pieces to the rubric that goes all the way down. And the main reason that we have 60 out of 108 is because it is literally one of the toughest things I've ever seen to get an award by. It looked like the national board certification, and then she reminded me that there's not only 3, but there's actually a total of 6 if you keep scrolling over. So that's a heck of an award that those people bring home to our district. I just wanted to say congratulations.
Dr. Blackburn.
Next, we want to acknowledge Brevard Public Schools exemplary science teachers. Introducing our presenters is Robin Novelli, Director, Secondary Leading and Learning.
Good evening, everyone. Brevard Public Schools and the Space Coast Science Education Alliance have worked in partnership to honor exemplary science teachers since 1999. Teachers selected for this prestigious award twice are eligible to be considered for induction to the Science Teacher Hall of Fame. Recognizing this year's honorees tonight is our science resource teacher, Lauren Kirschensteiner, who also is a member of the Space Coast Science Education Alliance. Lauren?
Good evening. We are pleased to recognize the ongoing contributions of our active Hall of Fame science teachers and to induct 2 new members to this impressive group. The Space Coast Science Education Alliance, Harris Corporation, and the Brevard Schools Foundation will present a $1,000 honorarium to our newest inductees and a $90 honorarium to each of our previously inducted teachers as a special thank you for their continuing dedication and service to students. And if I could ask Dr. Blackburn and Ms. Belford to assist, please. First, we have Ryan Silsick from Edgewood Junior Senior High School. Michelle Farrow from ESEA Title I. Jana Gabrielski from Suntree Elementary. John Latherow from Satellite High School. Maggie Mileto from West Shore Junior Senior High School. Deborah Miner from O'Galley High School. Richard Regan from Stone Magnet Middle School. Shemaine Rice from Surfside Elementary School. Lisa Scott from Satellite High School. And Wendy Sheldon from Williams Elementary. Our two new inductees this year are Deborah Austin of Delora Middle School and Beth Faulkner of Apollo Elementary School.
We are now ready for the resolutions and proclamations. Dr. Blackburn.
Mrs. Belford and members of the board, item C11 is a proclamation declaring January 23rd through January 27th, Celebrate Literacy Week, Florida. Mrs. Michelle Irwin will read it for us.
Whereas Brevard Public Schools has the goal of helping every student in the K-12 system to read at or above grade level and making literacy the priority of every citizen in Brevard County, and whereas change in the literacy culture of our schools will enable students to be successful in the 21st century from pre-kindergarten to post-secondary by raising expectations of teachers and students, and whereas involvement in literacy programs and projects is increased through school and community awareness of such programs, and whereas promoting the enjoyment of reading for all ages, children to adults, increases literacy rates, and whereas parents, families, neighbors, and mentors play a crucial role in helping children learn to read, and whereas Just Read Florida is a comprehensive coordinated reading initiative aimed at helping 2.6 million students become successful independent readers, and has thus been recognized as a national model. And whereas the Florida Department of Education's mission is to increase the proficiency of all students within one seamless, efficient system by providing them with the opportunity to expand their knowledge and skills through research-based learning opportunities valued by students, parents, and communities. And whereas Rick Scott, Governor of the State of Florida, does hereby extend greetings and best wishes to all observing January 23 through 27, 2017 as Celebrate Literacy Week, Florida. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the School Board of Brevard County hereby declares the week of January 23rd through January 27th, 2017, Celebrate Literacy Week, Florida, this 13th day of December, 2016.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? I have just one discussion point, and that is, Ms. Irwin, I know that you are going to immensely miss all of the ands with Brevard Public Schools in those resolutions.
Yes, I thought maybe somebody would give me a really long one just to fill me up in there. This one was
It's not over yet. All right, please vote. Passes 5-0. Dr. Blackburn, let's proceed with our presentations.
I want to welcome Mr. Dan Bennett, President of Brevard Federation of Teachers, and Deborah Greco, President of International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, Local 1010, to the podium to provide us with voting results.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Dr. Blackburn. I'm here tonight to present the results of our contract ratification vote, which was held on Saturday, December the 10th, and Monday, December the 12th. We voted at 7 different locations. We had 3,234 employees eligible to vote. We had a voting turnout of 17%. But the good news is, and the most important, we had an 86% in favor of the contract for 480 yes votes, 78 no votes, 2 voids, for a total of 560 votes were cast. Any questions?
Excellent news, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other board members have questions or comments?
Good evening, members of the board and Dr. Blackburn. I'll withhold comment for the 3 minutes of speaking, but I do want to say thank you to the district officials that helped get the communications out to our members. Dr. Kent, Rick Morton sent out some emails to all teachers on my behalf with the contract information, as well as some commentary and information about some sessions that we had. We voted at every location, including ESF. We had voting available for 4 days, at least 1 day at each site, and 4 days in the BFT office. We have approximately 4,819 eligible voters. We had an over 60% turnout. 2,991 teachers did cast votes. We have 1,852 yes votes and 1,139 no votes. That's a slight discrepancy from what you'll see on our website as the unofficial results. These are the official results. As we went through everything, we found that we had actually reversed 2 schools between their yeses and their nos. So these are exact, and we'll have them up tonight on the website. But it did pass with just over 60% as a yes vote. And Ms. Escobar has the official copy, and I'll keep a signed copy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Dr. Blackburn.
Now I'd like to welcome Mr. Gary Santa Claus Schifrin, Chair of the Independent Citizens Oversight Committee, who will be presenting the ICOC report to the board and the listening audience.
Just a quick funny comment, Dr. Blackburn. I know you'll appreciate this while they're preparing the presentation. Mr. Schifrin had posted on Facebook asking if his beard looked legitimate enough to be Santa. And I had to share with him that at the previous board meeting, I was sitting up here. I looked back and saw Mr. Schifrin in the audience, and this was long before his post. I looked back and saw him, and I thought, my goodness, he looks like Santa Claus. So when he posted asking for feedback on the legitimacy of his beard, I was happy to share that he was right on target.
Thank you very much.
If not for the rumor mill, I would sit on his lap and take a picture.
Please don't.
Anytime, Dr. Blackburn. Dr. Blackburn, Mrs. Belford, school board members, I am here tonight to present the annual report to the board about the ICOC, and this is, again, part of the requirement of the referendum, and so we will begin. Except I'm going past the slide. This slide reflects the membership of the ICOC as of October 26. Since that time, Mr. Susan has been elected to the school board, and the ICOC will discuss advertising for a replacement at their meeting tomorrow. Also, Ms. Chevalier and Mr. Daniels' terms are expiring in February, and the ICOC will consider recommending their reappointment at tomorrow's meeting. The charter requires at least 7 and no more than 11 members. The school board appoints the ICOC members based on a recommendation from the ICOC. The purpose of the ICOC is to provide general oversight of the sales surtax expenditures. The ICOC meets every other month, and we review a detailed package of information that includes revenues, expenditures by group, type, and school, and a summary of out-of-sequence and contingency projects. We are also advised on project status relative to facility renewal, educational technology, and school security investments. This year's annual report covers the sales surtax program from its inception through September 30th, 2016. The report is comprehensive, and the appendices contain considerable reference material regarding the ICOC and the sales surtax program. Priorities. The sales surtax program was based on assessments done in-house in 2014 prior to the referendum and a priority scoring matrix for facility renewal. A very specific program of work was developed based on the 2014 assessments. However, the program does not fund all of the identified needs. The ICOC is also advised when critical failures occur or when critical needs are identified that may warrant work to be done out of sequence or with contingency funds. Revenue. This is the good news. Through September 30th, 2016, program revenue totaled $64.5 million, which exceeded estimates by $12.6 million. This revenue is not extra, as the program budget target of $198 million has not been reached. The accelerated collections have allowed the district to address critical failures and invest in design for upcoming projects. This slide indicates the sales surtax allocation by group. Also note, the majority of the facility renewal funds, 74%, are invested in mechanical systems. Expenditures. Sales surtax encumbrances and expenditures totaled $38.3 million through September 30th. The expenditures will lag collected revenues because the program operates on a cash basis. Planning and design for major projects typically precede construction expenditures by 1 or 2 years. Usually funds are encumbered for construction 6 to 8 months prior to the summer construction season, and actual expenses occur from mid-summer through the end of the year. Expenditures are heavily focused on contracted services, which include contractors, construction managers, and design builders. The district also uses the Owner Direct Purchase Program, which allows the district to purchase major equipment and materials directly, thereby saving sales taxes. The professional fees appear higher because they occur at the front end of the project, and the corresponding construction expense is not yet encumbered. Procurement. The district uses multiple procurement methods to efficiently complete projects. The procurement method utilized is based on the nature, size, and urgency of the project. In the facility renewal arena, the marketplace is becoming more saturated with work, which is creating challenges in securing enough qualified subcontractors to focus on the district's work in the summertime. Projects. In the summer of 2016, the team executed 14 major and 9 minor facility renewal projects. This volume of work in a 2-month period did reveal some challenges for the staff and the vendors, which are being addressed. Of the $33.1 million expended and encumbered on the facility renewal program, approximately $5 million is invested in critical out-of-sequence or unplanned failures, of which roughly $4.5 million is for HVAC. The Educational Technology Program has made equipment investments in every school. Technology infrastructure projects are often combined with facility renewal projects for efficiency and cost savings. The team recently kicked off the 60 school security projects, which starts with a site visit that includes the consulting team, district security, the project manager, and the school's representative. Although schools are similar, each school is unique and requires a customized approach. Overall, the school security program budget is relatively small, with a limited scope of work, and some requests for additional resources are anticipated based on site visits conducted to date. The report you received has a detailed section with some photographs on major projects that are complete, under contract, in design, or being planned for 2018. This report is also posted on the website. Policy and strategy. The ICOC and the board approved policies regarding administration of the sales surtax program. The ICOC has also adopted its own procedures regarding member participation and public solicitation for new ICOC members. The ICOC has a limited role in surtax program policy, which is reserved for the school board. However, we do become aware of policy issues through our oversight role, and we are looking forward to the opportunity to discuss these issues with the school board at our upcoming workshop. One example is that the sales surtax program was built on a replacing like-for-like philosophy. However, options that improve energy efficiency and reduce life cycle costs are possible. These are implemented if the budget allows, but designing within the budget often precludes these alternatives. Audits. The district's internal auditors, RSM, perform semi-annual audits of the program. The first internal audit was completed in April 2016, and the objective was to assess the effectiveness of internal controls and validate the accuracy of the financial reporting provided to the ICOC. The second internal audit was presented to the Audit Committee in November and will be presented to the ICOC at their meeting tomorrow. Both audits were positive and available to the public for review. Also, the district's construction auditors, Carr, Riggs, and Ingram, audit each project over $1 million and small projects on a spot check basis. Their purpose is to ensure compliance with the contract and validate the final pay request. Most sales surtax projects are subject to construction audits. Conclusions. The ICOC is comfortable that the district is implementing the sales surtax program in accordance with the ballot initiative and district policies and procedures. In addition to ICOC oversight, the auditors continue to provide their independent review on a frequent basis. The appendices to the annual report includes further documentation regarding the program that may be of interest, including the charter, details on prioritization, detailed expenditure summaries, and a copy of the April 2016 audit. All of this documentation, as well as each ICOC agenda package, is posted on the website for public review. Optimizing the investment of surtax funds while remaining within budget is a challenge and will be one of the topics discussed at our February workshop with the board. We look forward to having more time to have a focused discussion with the school board regarding the program. Finally, as members of the ICOC, we appreciate the opportunity to serve our community in this important role. That concludes my presentation, and I'd be more than willing to have any questions either answered by myself or by the experts that are here.
Ms. Deskovich?
I don't have a question, but I just want to thank you. It's a big job. It's volunteer, right? I mean, to step up in the community, it's such an important role. This is taxpayer money, a lot of it, and I appreciate greatly the time you're putting into this.
Thank you. Thank you very much. By the way, I want to introduce Jean Cavalucci, who's our vice chair, who's with me tonight.
Thank you to you, sir, too.
Mr. Susan?
I just want to say it was a pleasure being on that board with you guys. These guys went out to all the different locations. They worked with some of the construction crews. They met with Dane. I mean, it's a lot. It's not just meeting once every quarter or every month when we started it out. It was an amazing opportunity to be a part with you guys. I learned a lot while I was there, and I look forward to seeing every good work coming from you guys in the future.
And we appreciate that, and we congratulate you on your election, but we hated to lose you from the ICOC.
Mr. Ziegler.
It's nice to know that you put in so much effort into really analyzing what's going on and that you all really care about this. I wanted to ask a question because we have somebody in our local media who seems concerned about fences. Has the ICOC had any conversation or concern about anything being done with fences that wasn't according to plan or didn't have a good reason for the project?
It hasn't come up in any of our meetings. Again, the fences were part of the security piece, and, you know, the intent is to get every school fenced in. So I know there's some concerns in regards to being able to go in and out, but again, the security goes out to the school and does an assessment before implementing any of that.
Okay, thank you. And I know that there are members of the ICOC who wouldn't hesitate to raise a red flag if they felt there was anything not being done according to plan. So thank you for the attention to that detail.
That's our job. Thank you.
Mr. Craig?
Mr. Schifrin, again, just to echo everybody's comments, and please pass to the rest of the team our sincere thanks. It is a thankless job, and this was critical to have community input, to have community oversight, that you report to us in a professional and an exacting level. This is, as Ms. Deskovich said, having the pictures in here is fantastic. The report is well done and extremely professional. I appreciate that. I'm glad Mr. Ziegler brought up the security issue, and it just highlights that the community, if they're concerned, the information is right here, and it is all public. It is inside of the 3% of what we are budgeted to spend on security. We are tracking on that amount, and I think that's the critical portion, is that we look to see where expenditures are being done. It's tracking exactly as we are supposed to be done, and I know you would highlight if there was something amiss there. So thank you very much for breaking it down into those buckets so that we can be very specific about what it is that the public may be concerned about.
Thank you. And transparency is really a priority of ours, and we have to be that way in order to make sure that the good citizens realize that that's what we're supposed to do, is oversee the expenditures. I'd be remiss if not also commending Sue Hahn, because all those numbers and everything else, that didn't come from me. So I give credit where credit is due, and she does an outstanding job.
Thank you, Sue.
I would just echo the sentiments of the rest of my peers, Mr. Schifrin. Thank you so much to you and everyone on the committee for all of the hard work that you all have done all along this process. And thank you to Ms. Hahn as well. And I'm sure you have staff members along with you that are helping you to support the ICOC, so we certainly appreciate that. And since our friends from Florida Today are over here in the corner, I would just like to make a request that you help us to get the word out to the community about the results of the ICOC findings when it comes to the way that sales tax procedures are taking place in the expenditures, because I know that was a very hot topic as we were working so hard to get the sales tax supported by the community, and I think it's critically important that they understand that this information is available for their review. So if you all would assist us in that effort, I would appreciate it. Thank
And
you,
I would
Mr.
also be
Schifrin.
remiss in not thanking the board for your support, because we couldn't do this without your support. And we look forward to the workshop we're going to have in February, and maybe we can discuss some of those other issues.
Look forward to it as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Are you bringing cookies, Santa? Yeah, right. All right, we are now at public comments. The maximum allotted time for each speaker is 3 minutes. Clarification of information presented and answers to questions specific to district business and educational matters will be posted on the school board's website under the section called For the Record. Please be reminded that profane, abusive, or slanderous speech is not permitted. I request that you speak into the microphone and state your name. We have 4 speakers scheduled this evening, so I'm just going to go ahead and call you, excuse me, call you in order so you can be prepared. First, Anthony Colucci. Second, Vanessa Skipper. Third, Dan Bennett. And fourth, Marcus Hockman. I'm only going to pull out the little podium for Mr. Bennett. The rest of you can use that one.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
My pleasure.
Put it way back there. Right up close, so keep an eye on it.
My name is Anthony Colucci. I'm the Vice President of the Brevard Federation of Teachers. One of the many initiatives that has seemingly come and went in this district is a philosophy of raising and teaching children called Love and Logic. One concept of this philosophy is about deposits and withdrawals. Simply stated, the idea is when things are going well, you give kids lots of choices, which are deposits. That way, when things aren't going so well, you have to make a withdrawal, and it seems a lot more reasonable. I think this concept explains how teachers chose to ratify the 2016-17 contract. Mr. Susan and Ms. Deskovich added to teacher savings accounts with their campaign promises. Ms. Belford, Mr. Craig, and Mr. Ziegler have worked hard over the past couple of years to add into teacher savings accounts. Along with every selfie Dr. Blackburn has taken with teachers has come a deposit into the account. Our new CFO has added to the account with her financial transparency. President Bennett, in his years of unrelenting service to our teachers, has made a deposit. Vice President Skipper and myself had made deposits into the account by improving communications between BFT and teachers. With that said, teachers have just made a very big withdrawal from the figurative savings account. The account is depleted. We are starting at zero and need to start making deposits into the savings account again. A part of that will be reducing the workload and streamlining the evaluation system, providing support for teachers who are dealing with severe student discipline problems. But make no mistake about it, a huge part of this is making a literal deposit into teachers' bank accounts next year. A small increase in pay like this contract provided is not going to cut it next year. A serious pay increase is in order. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Teachers expect to be well compensated when they are working under a pay for performance contract. You must budget for teachers' raises next year. As someone who has a good pulse on what's going on with teachers, I say this not as a threat, but a reality. You must do better next year than you did this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Colucci. Ms. Skipper?
Vanessa Skipper, Second Vice President, Brevard Federation of Teachers. I did not type up a fancy speech tonight because I can never stick to 3 minutes. So I'm thinking maybe just put us on the agenda so we can throw 4 or 5 minutes my way. I'd like to thank Mr. Craig for wearing his tiger tie, black and orange, and also say that I'm going to play that portion of the comment section for my 4th period class where Javian Hawkins is present, because I talk all the time about the importance of being a student athlete, of showing the performance within the classroom and on the field. And I also talk to my students about perception being reality. And for a long time, and probably it can still be truly said, the perception of Cocoa High School hasn't always been wonderful. But the fact of the matter is you guys saw the show up, or that our community showed up for those boys and for our school at that state game. And our community shows up on a regular basis, and our students show up on a regular basis. And I couldn't be prouder of the school where I teach, and I love being there. So thank you for that, and thank you to everyone on the board and Dr. Blackburn. A brilliant student last week who was attending the Naval Academy said something that has resonated with me since that night, and he said, make the system work for them. And he was referring to both students and teachers. So there's a few things that we can do to make the system work for teachers. My colleague Anthony spoke about the first one. Senate Bill 736 calls for pay for performance raises. Now, we could get into a huge discussion about whether I think tying student test scores to teacher raises is even a thing that should be considered, but the fact of the matter is the law was passed in 2010 for pay for performance. So we should be budgeting for pay for performance. And I hope that you guys are truly dedicated that when your budget meeting comes in February, that we are on the agenda to be budgeted for. There should be a set amount every single year that if you pull it out in that classroom and you're a highly effective teacher, you should know your pay is going to go up by this much. Or if you're an effective teacher, your pay is going to go up this much. That is why the law was written. How do we make the system work for students? Stop the unnecessary testing. There is a test that is being given this week, I know in secondary schools, called FAIR. Now, I know FAIR is also given in elementary schools. I can't speak to how it was given in elementary schools, but I have had countless students pulled out of my class this week, return to my class late to take a test that's not a graduation requirement. And they are being pulled from my instructional time. They are being pulled when their semester exam starts Friday. It's an unnecessary test. It doesn't need to be given. It was given when we took the FCAT. You can't tell me the FCAT and the FSA are the same. They're not. The FSA, in my opinion, is not even a valid test. Utah told us that. But I'm not sure why we're taking a test or we're having kids taking a test to predict how they're going to do on a test next semester when they should be focusing on being in the classroom. In addition, I'm going to share a story from a parent who couldn't be here today because her son is in a performance, but I received an email from her. I should say that this student is not in my classroom. Today, my son informed me that he was not present in his first or second period classes. He informed me that he was told that he had testing today, a reading plus assessment. I am very upset that he was pulled from these classes. Exams are less than 4 days away. The loss of instructional time
Ms.
is not
Skipper.
something.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
But I would invite you to please share that information with us via email so that we
Oh,
can get the
absolutely.
information.
And it basically was what I said before. So get rid of unnecessary tests. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening again. I didn't know we were writing scripts. Everyone, I left the classroom 9 years ago, and I walked away from the greatest profession. And I believe that then, I believe it now. I walked away from the greatest profession. I'll go back someday. But I walked away to represent those that stayed behind in the greatest profession. And I thought, oh, the task of representing them would be easy. All I have to do is speak out, scream, shout, say what was the truth, try to move things forward, and everybody would rally behind me. And let me tell you, it's quite a challenge to represent 5,000 teachers. They're all wonderful. They're all part of the greatest profession. But when you ask 5,000 people a question and 3,000 people respond, you don't always get 100% unanimous result. And what's amazing, unsurprisingly, is that those that disagree with the majority are often quite vocal about it and have passionate reasons that they will share with you. And I want to make sure I share with you some of those reasons I was told why people voted no on this contract. The majority of people, the way I phrased the question to them, and I said, we're not recommending a yes or no. I said, this is honestly what I believe is the best deal that we can get given December. Given that the legislature did their business, the board did your business in the spring when you wrote the budget, and then you got the funding from Tallahassee secured and confirmed, and then you had what was left over, and you put together a budget. And then as we went through the school year, we saw how the counts were coming out and the FTE and the holdback money and everything else. I said, this is where I think we honestly have the best deal to bring it to teachers. And I said, I don't think we're going to get more if we wait longer. And based on that, we had about 62% say yes. Now, if I phrase the question, is everybody happy? We would not have had 62% yes. If I phrase the question, is this what you think you're worth? I would not have had a majority yes. If I phrase the question, Do you feel valued and respected? Do you feel like you're doing the most important profession, being appropriately rewarded and compensated? I would not have had 62% yes. I had people that quite passionately and loudly voiced their displeasure and their disgust with the amount of money that was put on the table. And the best I can do is tell people not to point fault and blame in the wrong direction. I'm not trying to hold all of you accountable, or the folks in the back table accountable, or me accountable for where we ended up. But what I am saying is that if we do some planning, as has been suggested, if we start in January to say we need to prioritize these raises, this pay for performance, which is legislatively required, if we make that a priority in the spring, then we can come through this field of uncertainty and hopefully make teachers feel better about it next year when we're voting. All those teachers who said no because they felt disrespected, I want you to remember them in the spring, and let's not disrespect them again. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Mr. Hockman?
Good evening, board members and Dr. Blackburn. Last board meeting, I left off with Abraham's quote, "Upon the subject of education, not presuming to dictate any plan or system respecting it, I can only say that I view it as the most important subject which we as a people can be engaged in. I'm here with the intent of asking, what are you willing to do to achieve this? What I mean by this is simple. Are you willing to educate parents in order for them to be politically active to achieve equality and success for our students in our public schools, and of course our public schools themselves? Are you willing to work with each other on simple issues and complex issues of the current political education climate of today? Are we willing to share concepts, ideas, and solutions in order for us to be the best school institution that we will be? Are we willing to question ourselves? Are we willing to listen? Are we willing to collaborate together? Are we willing to stand together? Are we willing to fight for our public schools? To the school board, who is the elected body for the people, by the people, what are you willing to do to engage with the politicians of DC and Tallahassee? Are you willing to stand and fight for our schools with teachers and parents by your side? The reason I bring this up is basically about a month ago, I was watching Giuliani speak on State of the Union or Jacked Up or whatever show, and he said an interesting comment about how him and the Trump candidacy is dealing with Putin in Russia. He said basically, you must negotiate from a position of strength. My question to you, also to FSBA, FEA, the Florida PTA, and other organizations, are you negotiating from a position of strength? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. The board wishes to thank this evening's speakers. Your willingness to speak to the board is appreciated. That moves us into the consent agenda. Dr. Blackburn?
There are 29 agenda items under this category, 10 with prior information.
Thank you, Dr. Blackburn. Does any board member wish to pull any items?
F-37.
F-37?
F-36, if I have the most recent, let me make sure. No, it's F-37. Never mind.
Okay, so both are F-37. Got that, Pam? Okay. I will entertain a motion to accept the consent items with the exception of the items that were pulled for discussion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Please vote. I know, I forgot we were functioning this evening. And it passes 5-0. All right, moving to F-37. Mr. Susan, since you were the first one that pulled F-37, would you like to address that?
So F-37 is dealing with the lease up in Rockledge, and at first case when we looked at it, it was, hey, this is the best place because We have the other facility sitting there, and it was presented that way to me without any other information. As it moved through the county last week, an issue was brought up that said that in 2012, there's an architectural firm that actually put together the 3 locations that they had been priorly looking at. Those 3 locations were looked at. One was in Viera, the other one was in Rockledge, and there was another location. They said that at that point, it was the best location was Viera for many locations, for many reasons. So what I'm looking at it tonight is that I feel, with this information that I'm looking at today, that I don't feel that I've had an educated look at it, and I'd like to have the discussion. Not only does it cost more to have the facility built over there than over in Viera, but it also has a deal where all of our other services and everything else are there. So my question is that when I'm sitting here saying that we're going to give away a piece of land that we may be able to sell ourselves for revenue for us, for programs like the Kid with the Clubs or debt or anything like that, have we looked at all of the other options? And I'll tell you, I don't feel that if the county was going to ask our school board members for $300,000 piece of property or $400,000 piece of property, that they should just call us and talk to us about it. I didn't get any of that. I didn't even get this report. So that's the reason that I wanted to open it up for discussion.
Ms. Deskovich?
The one thing, I got the same report that Matt, Mr. Susan, has received, and the firm that did the consultation, the study, ranked their own property across the street as the #1 choice for cost and other reasons, and our property that they're asking us to, lease to them is #2. I received 3 studies, actually, and all 3, that was the final report. And once again, we didn't have that information last week, or the last board meeting, so I feel like new information has come to light. It's valued at $310,000. I think about the things we could do with $310,000, and so, I have concerns.
Mr. Ziegler?
Both duly noted. However, a couple points, one of which is I don't feel we're giving away the land. The land is owned by the citizens of Brevard County. It'll continue to be utilized and owned by the citizens of Brevard County for the benefit of the safety of everybody in Brevard County, #1. #2, we're not building the EOC. We're not studying the EOC. We're not the experts on the EOC. And so I don't believe it's our purview to direct where that's going to go. I think that falls across the street. And personally, I don't feel it's appropriate to jump into their sandbox and figure out what's what. I think that if you're interested, as you were, and you dig in, that's great, and then you go speak to county commissioners and go speak to their staff and learn what their reasons are, but I don't think we should be, although they sometimes judge us, I don't think we should be judging them. So if this is what they and the experts in emergency services feel is in the best interest for the Brevard County, I personally don't have any expertise to second guess that. Mr. Craig, of course, has extensive expertise in that, and he may have some more insight, but from my position, I'm not going to second guess the county commission on that.
Mr. Craig, would you like to comment?
All right, thank you. Great points, Mr. Ziegler. Completely agree. This body is responding to a request from another government body that has already voted and approved a location that they deemed appropriate. It's not my position to judge. They didn't ask me, and I would consider myself somewhat knowledgeable in the emergency management field, having led the Department of Navy's emergency response in the Southeast here for the last couple of years. Those comments are really irrelevant. And as much as I could comment on it, I won't, because that's not my job. My job is to respond to a request from another government agency that has voted and said this is where they think the best place is to be. I can tell you from an anecdotal standpoint that if anybody has set foot in the EOC, the current EOC, especially during an emergency, you would be the first person to say we needed a new EOC last year. I can also tell you that the state has been very, very vocal in when they remove it every year from as a line item removal from the budget, that it's because they don't have any place to put it. And there are a variety of reasons there, and you can get into the National Incident Management System, NIMS, which oversees all of domestic incident response, why you may or may not want to have a co-located EOC next to your center of operations. But again, that is things that that body has to determine because that's what they're elected for. We are responding to the request for conveyance of the property via lease, and we already voted on it once. They have voted on it and approved it. And I don't see it in our bandwidth to start second-guessing and negotiating things that we don't know anything about. The question is, do we want to renegotiate or adjust this lease to fulfill the vote that we had last time that authorized them to utilize the property, no matter where it is, to build their EOC. So I think that's the real question. And if there are questions about that, certainly the county commissioners, and if you have a weigh-in on them, that's fine. I just don't think that's in our it's in our swim lane. I think I don't know if anybody has talked to at least the county manager. Superintendent's nodding his head. What did he say? And was that recent?
As recent as last evening, I spoke with the county manager, Mr. Witten, and it remains his recommendation to his board that they take advantage of this property to build that EOC, and so it remains my recommendation to our board here that we approve this item.
So again, thank you. And again, if they decide not to, that's fine. We will take the property and we will dispose of it or build on it or whatever we're going to do with it eventually anyway. So I don't think there's any negative or downside to us just readjusting the lease as it is to conform with the law.
Mr. Susan.
So does the lease currently say that if they don't use it, that we can bring it back to our hands immediately? Or is it that we have to wait the 30 years until it comes out?
The lease restricts the use of the property to building the EOC, and that's all. That's all they can do with it.
Once we give it over, though, do they have control of it for 30 years? Or can we get it back? Say all of a sudden they say, you know what, we don't have it. Does the lease allow us to pull it back?
No. The lease allows them, possession of the property for a number of years. Is restricted to building an EOC and when funding is available.
So if they decide that they don't want to use to build the EOC, or the funding doesn't come through because it's a $20 million price tag, then all of a sudden that property lays vacant for the next 30 years?
No, there's no reverter clause in this lease.
But I mean, it's a valid question.
And there's no time frame for them to actually construct it. It says when funds are available.
I understand.
And I specifically asked that question at the last meeting, and we decided not to put that in there. And if we want to add that, that's fine. I don't think that is relevant to the fact that if they decide to build the EOC somewhere else, then we're going to get the property back if we ask.
That's what I was going to say. Obviously, if they're not going to build on the property, then it defeats the lease.
If they start building an EOC somewhere else, then would that in effect negate the lease then?
They're going to build two
Unless they're going to build two EOCs.
Yeah.
I would think also in that process, just to respond to that concern, and I completely understand where you're coming from, Mr. Susan, but as long as they have the lease on that property, they also have liability. They also have, there are other, there are strings that go with them having the lease on the property. So I can't imagine that the county commission would want to continue to hold on to the property if they make a decision to build an EOC elsewhere. Just, go ahead. Oh, Ms. Deskovich.
Back to, you said you don't want to get involved in what their decisions are over there, but I wasn't given accurate information, and as a matter of fact, the commissioners, the elected body, wasn't given the accurate information at the last county commission meeting. They were told that the number one choice from this group that did the study 3 times, that the number one choice was our property. And so they voted on that information, just as I voted on that information last school board meeting. And it's new information. I'm going to have a hard time supporting it.
May I ask, Ms. Deskovich, are you getting concerns from commissioners about us supporting this item?
Yes, that's why it came to light.
Yes, sir.
My concern wasn't so much the county commissioners as far as whether they voted for it or against it. It's just that one of the things that we were looking at is there's a lot of county leases throughout the district that have been on the rolls for years. And once those properties, what I was trying to get at was part of the problem that we have is that we sign these leases, and if the property's not used for a specific purpose, then it just sits there. And we could utilize that property if we were, whether we were going to use it for leases to other people or sell it or use it for tax rolls and everything else. And there's a piece of property just south of Cherry Downs on the ocean currently that's leased to the county that's been sitting there vacant. It's on the ocean. That could be utilized for tax rolls and everything else. My fear in this whole situation was we're giving up something, which you're right. I mean, if it's the situation is that that's the best place, then that's where it goes. But when this came up and it showed that in 2012 they actually paid somebody to look at it, and it showed in each one of the 3 reports that the best place was at Viera, along with the fact that we signed these leases and then and if the property doesn't go, then it ends up sitting vacant forever. That became a concern for me, and that's why I was bringing it up as an issue.
Additional comments? Mr. Craig, are we waiting on I'll take a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor? I'm sorry, please vote. I keep forgetting that it's working. Okay, do we need a recess? Oh, the vote was 3-2. All right, no recess. Then we will move on to the action agenda. Dr. Blackburn.
There are 2 items for your consideration. First is item G44, which is Department School Initiated Agreements.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Please vote. All right, passes unanimously. Dr. Blackburn.
Item G45 is on purchasing solicitations.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Please vote. And it passes 5-0. All right, we will move on to the information agenda, which includes items for board review and will be brought back for action at a subsequent meeting. No action will be taken on these items tonight. Dr. Blackburn.
There are 6 items under the information category.
Does any member wish to discuss anything on the information agenda?
I just have a question. I'm not sure if it's
Go.
appropriate time to ask the question. On the social studies or the history textbooks, we were able to access them to review them a little bit this time. Will the public, it's going for 30 days? I should have asked this, this week, but it just occurred to me now.
And we are getting an affirmative head nod from Ms. Klein.
So the public will have access for 30 days now to review them, and then we approve them the next school board meeting.
And
Okay.
that would be another affirmative head nod from Ms. Klein.
Thank you.
Anything else on the information agenda need to be discussed by any board member? Very good. We are now at the board member reports and discussion point section. In addition to discussion points, I request that board members please include any information requests to be placed on board assigned tasks during this time as well. Who would like to start with board member reports? Sure, Ms. Deskovich will start us.
Okay, you asked us to report on our assignments, I believe, which
Beautiful.
I've done my job. I've been assigned to the Professional Development Council, which I have contacted Ms. Diaz, who I think is back there. We meet 4 times per year, so I have nothing really to report from there yet. January 19th will be our next meeting that I will be part of, and so I'll have something to report from that. My other assignment is the Brevard Values Adjustment Board. Again, we meet apparently twice a year. So from what I have learned so far, I'll be sitting on a board with a county commissioner, a few citizens. It's handled by the clerk of court, and we will be determining the property values within the county. And I think there's not even a date set, but the final meeting, which I'll have to be part of, isn't until next summer. So I don't have a very big job, but I'll be able to report next summer on that. As far as what I've been doing as a board member, meeting again with staff one by one. It's a big job, trying to absorb everything that's going on here at the district. Meeting with principals, school by school, trying to absorb everything that's going on at our schools. Also, since the last school board meeting, I was able to attend a education conference in Washington, D.C., and was able to report back on some of where education is heading by some of our thinkers and leaders in education on national level. So it was a good experience, and I was happy to be able to participate in that. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Craig, you want to keep the flow going? Who would him be?
Just a couple quick things, since nothing's really met other than already mentioned the Brevard Schools Foundation. Again, congratulations to them. At FSBA, at our annual or semi-annual conference, some goods that came out of that. First of all, congratulations to Mr. Ziegler for being elected chair of the Central Florida School Board Coalition. I know you're going to do great things there and represent us well. One of the best things that I think came out of our breakfast that morning was a discussion about possibly moving forward with our own rating system for our schools. Brevard and the Central Florida School Boards are usually at the forefront in leadership in many ways. I think you hit the nail on the head that by making our own claim to how we rank our schools and making it very transparent and very easy to see how we do it, we can show the state how important rankings are and how easy it really can be if we do it the right way. So I'm looking forward to using the coalition as a vehicle to be a leader and do that. I think that's really critical. And then as we reach out to all the different entities throughout the community, making sure that they understand that we're leading that, whether it be realtors or builders or whoever, economic development, all the different entities that collaborate with us for our district. Sat through quite a few different sessions. There was one on medical marijuana and the influence that it has on school district policy. Very interesting, things that I never thought about. As the Colorado attorney who was hired by the state of Colorado to just address school board issues, he said, "Welcome to the club. Be careful what you've passed because there's a lot of legal stuff coming your way." And so I know that we have a lot of thinking to do policy-wise to making sure that as that law goes into effect, that we understand its effect both on our students and on our employees, and how that affects us as a district, and that we are abiding by the law as it is written. Also, Ms. Belford and I sat through some quick sessions, one on a PASS system, which is actually an in-school suspension alternative, where a dedicated space inside of a school is made a suspension area, classroom, however you want to say it, that is separate from the host school, completely separate from a oversight Prospect and all that type of thing. But it has worked great, and I can't remember which county that was. I think it might have been Pinellas, but it was somebody on the West Coast, I believe. But they've had some great success.
Marion, Dr.
Marion,
Fetty
maybe it
is
was Marion.
telling me. Thank you.
They had some great success with that program, and something that I think that I know that Ms. Belford has already, I think, spoke to Dr. Fetty about. The Guidance Counselor Assistance Program, there was quite a few districts, and I believe our Schools Foundation actually uses it through Take Stock, as many that Take Stock in children groups throughout the state use it. It is a website, portal, however you want to call it, that walks students through the career pipeline, collecting interests, collecting background, collecting dreams, all those things, and hopefully giving some sort of guidance to that student that allows them to then go talk to a guidance counselor with something in their hip pocket rather than the guidance counselor trying to draw that out of them. I found it very interesting. I'd like to learn a bit more, and through our own Schools Foundation, how they utilize it through Take Stock, and if they do, and see if it's applicable to the rest of the district, because it was, for the short time that we got the hands-on, I think you and I would both agree it was pretty impressive on how it can really streamline that process, but also give some real meat to the guidance counselor process, and give the guidance counselors a heck of a lot more to work with, rather than just a cold call, basically. A variety of other things, but once again, good to meet with several of our fellow board members, compare notes, and more to come on many of those things.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Craig. Mr. Ziegler?
Thank you, Mr. Craig, for mentioning the Central Florida Public School Board Coalition. I was actually taken back a bit when Superintendent Griffin from Seminole actually started the conversation about us having more accountability and better, more accurate assessment and grading and things of that nature, which aligned with a thought that I had to bring up. So it's good to see that support, and I'm glad you're going along. Of course, the way to do that, in my opinion, we'll get input from the coalition at our meeting on January 9th, is we look to the superintendents, who are the experts, to say this is what's wrong with the current school grading system, and these are the components that should be removed or added, and let them guide us so that we're all united in what's appropriate. And then, like you said, the state hopefully will take notice. And we're not replacing what the state or anybody does. We're just going to say, okay, Central Florida has their own metric for evaluating that. One of the things that I mentioned that I want to do with the other 12 counties, and maybe even soon to include Indian River, they're interested in joining, is really work on how do we elevate respect for the profession of education. How do we elevate, as a Central Florida area, respect for teachers, and what would a campaign look like for that? Because 50 years ago, or not even, when military personnel came back, there was little respect for them, but there was tremendous respect for teachers, and somehow that got reversed. All important to our society and our future, and so we're going to have that conversation as a group of school districts and see if we can make a statement there also. And also let you all know that with Ms. Escobar's assistance, we secured Keith Winston from the zoo to do the first presentation to the coalition on the great partnership that we have with the zoo and all the great things that they do for students in Brevard County. And we're going to be very proud to showcase that on January 9th. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Ziegler. Mr. Susan?
Yeah, so also I went and started looking at my different board appointments and stuff like that, and one of the places that I got set was the BCA. And the Brevard Cultural Alliance is phenomenal. I never even knew, being a social studies teacher, I wasn't too much in the art department. They tried to keep me out of there because I'd probably try to stick some kind of feathered hat inside their kilns and all kinds of stuff. So, but what we basically did was I went in there and they showed how many times they bring the artists into the schools and how many times all the other projects that they do was phenomenal. I never even knew that was a piece. And what they're going to try to do with the old Melbourne High School money that they have coming would be something that'd be a feather in our cap for the district. I was thoroughly impressed. I also went through and had the honor to be involved over the last couple of weeks with Miss Archer in the back and she's working on a project 2018, which is phenomenal, in order to get a lot of the industry involved in some of our innovation and some of our trades. Ms. Archer said, here are the people we need to go chase down, and we went ahead and met with Northrop Grumman and Brer and other organizations through the Economic Development Council, and I'm so happy with some of the direction that that's going through. We had the meeting today, of course, but with Ms. Archer working on the backside with all the different pieces to that program, I'm going to be so happy. And that thing's going to be a feather in our cap in 2 years. The other piece to it is that I met with all of the trades unions, the ABC, along with the plumbers and pipe fitters and other organizations out at the Cape to see how we can start moving forward with bringing some of the trades into our schools and try to have them help out. I also went and met with 8 of my elementary schools. And one of the funny themes that kept coming up was I said, you know, prior to me coming in, what did other board members do that may be able to be a good thing that I could continue for you? And they said, well, Mr. Ziegler always comes by. And I said, Mr. Ziegler? What are you talking about? Apparently, Mr. Ziegler has visited all of my schools all the way south of Viera. And they really, really did have a good, they talked highly of Mr. Ziegler because they said that he came in and talked about the different issues and stuff like that and actually cared about it. And I did want to give you the cahoots for that. I won't give it to you too often, but that is one that you did. It was really good.
I suppose that's going to cost me $5.
And then we start getting to some of the other pieces that I was doing. I don't send out the information requests on the thing. I usually do a lot of behind-the-scenes phone calls and digging. And project graduation we had was a $350,000 price tag, right? If you look at project graduation from when we purchased it, which is now, had we done it in October 1st, we would have saved 12%. That's a huge savings. And what we need to do is take a look at, because the reason that we were purchasing those project graduation tickets was for underserved kids, and I'm totally behind that. I believe in that. But what I would like to try to do is catch it in on October 1st or prior, because the numbers of those are going to be pretty close to the savings that we have. And then, so what I did was I tried to argue and get them to give us the discount so that we could purchase more tickets to try to get them, but it just came out too late. So I would like to see if in the next year that we could purchase an estimated amount to try to save that money, because it's inwards of between $35,000 and $45,000. The next piece is of course, I went through and I discussed with the principals in both elementary, middle, and high schools over what they could do, and a lot of them were saying enrich, 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 fix it. So I'm going to look to staff with Mr. Fitzgerald and others over how we can go ahead and fix that program and what's going on, because that seems to be a common theme. And when we have certain principals that are giving away, time because so that they can come back and everything, because they had enrich didn't work, so they had to come in and work to make up the times that didn't work. That hurts our district. So I think we need to evaluate that one. And then the last piece is the PGP. I started looking at this, and this is the other thing that keeps hitting me as I go around, both teachers and principals. I asked every one of the principals, I said, if the PGP was removed, what would you think? And not one of them said, I've got to have it. Not one of them. And the majority of them said that we didn't want it. So I will say that. And you know, now that we had Senate Bill 6 created the PGP and a lot of the other evaluation system, I think that this is something that we can do and work forward for the next 6 months on trying to remove out of our system so that we can give them something back.
Thank you, sir. And I think, Mr. Susan, on that PGP issue, there has been some discussion with the superintendent as well as with Dr. Kent regarding that issue and with BFT. So I think it's something that we're certainly looking at how we can make that happen. But I appreciate your input from the school level on it. I have just a couple of things that I'll share as far as board report, and then I have one discussion item that we need to make a decision on. On the guidance assistance program that Mr. Craig mentioned, that's the one, Dr. Blackburn, that I shared with you while we were in Tampa at the like $6 per student or something like that. And while I think from the surface and what we saw, it looks phenomenal as a tool to help our students kind of identify their path, I also want to encourage us to look at it as a tool for determining our program offerings, because I feel like it's a really good inventory of interest. And if we can get a good inventory of interest, it'll help us to do that CTE evaluation that we discussed in our workshop earlier today to really get an idea of what we're offering and how much value we're bringing with those offerings. So just wanted to mention that again. Committee appointments. We met as a legislative committee while we were in Tampa at the FSBA conference. That's one of my committees that I took over for Ms. Henderson on, and basically approved our legislative platform, which I will email out to all of you so you can have it. It's very similar to what you saw before on the information, a lot of alignment with what we have talked about at the district level, so no huge surprises there. There was discussion about allowing FADs to kind of take the lead on platform and us kind of piggyback on them. So that's one of the things that they're looking at as far as ensuring that, that there's alignment there. Our advocacy committee had met, and there was a little bit of discussion. You all should have gotten an email about the advocacy survey, asking what you want from your advocacy committee. It was in the last FSBA update. There was the advocacy survey. There were like 3 survey links in that email. So if you wouldn't mind checking your email and taking the time to take that survey so they can have some feedback as to direction to go. And then the last item that I have to discuss is something that we actually need some direction on for Pam. As you all know, the previous board approved our membership in the FSBA last year, and that is through July of this coming year. The Florida Coalition of School Board Members has a different invoice cycle than the FSBA, and so Ms. Deskovich, I believe you were interested in joining that organization, and Mr. Susan as well. The dues for joining that organization are $1,950 per school board member. Per our bylaws, it does state that the board may authorize all approved expenses for membership of its board members and recognized school board associations. Expenses of a board member incurred in the performance of his or her duties will be paid by the district, provided that you submit a written statement, and within the constraints of budgeted resources. So we need to discuss and approve membership in that organization for Mr. Susan and Ms. Deskovich, if we choose to approve. Obviously, discussion around that issue. The one thing that I do want to point out is that membership is $1,950. Currently budgeted for board expenses is $1,422 per board member for out-of-county travel and $500 for dues per board member. So those two numbers combined would come up just short of that membership amount, which I think is probably something that we could work out if we choose to go that route. But we do need to have the discussion, and since legislation was passed last year that changes, it used to be that we all joined as a board with FSBA, and there wasn't really discussion of individual board members joining individual membership organizations. Since statute changed, this is kind of the first time that we've had to deal with this particular situation, and especially with it being on different cycles. So I think we need to have some discussion around where we want to go with that. I do think as we go forward at our board retreat, we need to have some more in-depth conversation about budgeting and how we handle board member expenditures and that sort of thing. I don't want to get into all of that tonight because I feel like it's a much more lengthy conversation, but I do want to make sure that we address the requests of our 2 newest board members to move forward on that, that membership. So I will offer it for discussion from Mr. Ziegler.
That is a conversation we do need to have. There's a lot, the community seems, well, they don't, I guess, understand that unlike our counterparts across the street, we don't have a budget for, large budget for expenses and for assistance and for dues and travel and all that, and we're basically equivalent in the constituency that we serve, so it's a valid conversation. As far as joining another organization is concerned, I think that we need to practice what we preach and the importance of professional development, and it's always been a pet peeve of mine to see elected officials out there who think they get elected and they know everything. So I'm glad that our new board members want to dig in and join an organization to help educate themselves. And I support anything along those lines. If they'd like to do that, that's fine. My only concern is I really know nothing about that organization, and I'd like to know a little bit more, and I'd be glad to approve or support that request, but I don't really know what they offer for services. I don't know who their membership is. I don't know. I'd like to get some more of that information so that we know what we're. You know, we've been criticized for spending money in areas with vendors that maybe we shouldn't have spent money with. So I'd like to know that what really that is that we'd be paying for membership for. But professional development. Absolutely. I think it helps us do our job better. It helps us serve our public better. I'd just like a little more information.
Mr. Susan, I think you had your hand up, and then I'll come to Ms. Deskovich.
Yeah, and I don't know if we have to make a decision here. I think everybody needs to become more educated on the organization and everything else. And if we were going to allot the money, I could tell you that I'm probably not going to take it out of my travel funds in order to do it. I'd like to get educated on it, and if there's an opportunity to join organizations like that, that we can appropriate the money also. But I wouldn't want to take it out of my travel budget because there's other things that I would like to do. And if I have to take it out of there, then it becomes an issue.
Okay, one of the first things I did after getting sworn in was find out what my budget was, and I was told the exact numbers you gave me, and I knew that came close to the dues for this, and I assumed that's exactly where I would pull them from. So I knew there was most of the money available when I applied. A little bit about the organization for your reference, Mr. Ziegler. It's the Florida Coalition of School Board Members. They organized 2 years ago. Last legislative session, they set 8 legislative priorities. I joined them as an associate member, as a candidate member. You can do that for a small personal fee. So I've been a member of the organization on that level for a little over a year. And so I've sat in on their professional development, which I have found useful. I've sat in on their, they have town hall calls with legislators, heads of our education appropriation committees, very influential decision makers within our state. And at this point, they're a small organization, so there's 15 or 20 of us on the call with people that are making key decisions, and we have direct access to them to ask questions and to give input, and I find that very valuable. I think the 1950 for me is so worth that as a benefit to us as a board that we can have a little bit of a voice. One of the things I campaigned on was having a voice in Tallahassee. It affects so much of what we do. I feel very passionate about this. I'm hoping we can approve it tonight. I'm ready to jump right in. Thank you. I said they had 8 legislative priorities last session, and 7 of them were put into bills and passed. So they're pretty effective, even though they're new and small.
Mr. Craig?
Great points across the board. I'm familiar with the organization because I joined it when it started because it was, well, it didn't cost anything. and it was a great resource, and I have just sat in on a few of their calls. I too am a little, I kind of lost the way there. I don't know quite, I still get some update emails from them, but I don't think it gives the whole picture. It doesn't really matter. I think it's critical that we have a broad base of resources to go with. There's no doubt I've been very critical of FSBA. Still am not a huge fan of everything they do. I do think that some of their resources, especially during the conference, their breakout sessions are very well done if you pick the ones that interest you, and that you find some people that truly are have some knowledge to pass, and I found that a definite plus. Some of the negatives are they're a large organization, and their priorities may not align with this district all the time, and I think we've been able to kind of work through that at times, and certainly moving to our new lobbying firm has kind of separated ourselves from the big picture of FSBA. So I don't have a problem with anybody joining any organization, but I think it brings to point a common thread that has been kind of mentioned here, is that we need then to have constant updates and conversation between those two organizations, meaning the people that are involved in both of them, because the only way we're truly going to get any return on investment for all of the district is to make sure that we understand what is going on in each of those organizations. So if we're going to have a couple people in one and a couple people in another, I think it's awesome, but I think we need to have a standardized way of getting the information passed between everybody so that we can all benefit from it. That's the only way that it makes sense to have people doing different things. Otherwise, then you're just an individual member and not, obviously I think we all want to contribute to the group, because the group is this board of 5 is the one that's setting policy and making those decisions. So I think it's critical that we have some methodology of doing that. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that through Sunshine. And I think, I look to others to guide me in that way, or guide this board in that way, but I would throw that out there as the, the kind of the linchpin for me of absolutely, heck, I may join it, I don't know. But I want to make sure that if we have multiple organizations or multiple professional organizations that we're a part of, and that includes FADS, I would love to have a lot more in-depth knowledge of what FADS does and how it benefits, districts, what you see the value is, that type of thing. Because I think it's critical that if we have 3 organizations that we're paying dues to, we need to make sure we understand what it is that they're actually giving us in return.
I would agree, Mr. Craig. Along with, and this is one of the things that I mentioned to Mr. Ziegler, is we have the Central Florida School Board Coalition, which is doing great things, wonderful collaboration among the districts in our area. But there's a disconnect there as well, and that information doesn't flow to the rest of us as to what's going on. And we had talked about a trip report in Dr. Blackburn's evaluation, and I think that we certainly need to implement some way of ensuring that we're sharing that information with each other to truly bring the value of the various memberships to the organization. I think that's critical and something that we can maybe hammer out as we work in our retreat.
Is it something that can be put in our board reports? When we voted to have last month the FSBA liaison, I assumed that you would come back and report often what they were doing. I mean, I would gladly be the coalition liaison and come back and report, and all the way down the line, just a representative from each.
We could certainly share information that we receive, documents, things of that nature. It's all public record once we receive it, so that's perfectly good to share. And then, of course, bring back highlight points in our reports would be a great idea. And Mr. Craig, you said something I just want to elaborate on a little bit about joining multiple organizations. I think that's perfectly okay, too. I don't think there's a requirement that we have to choose one organization over the other. Dr. Blackburn has been urging that we get involved in the national conversation, and actually I need to look into the NSBA conference coming up at the end of March. I may go out and check that out and learn more about that level of conversation. So anything we can do to enhance our knowledge to help our district, including all opportunities, is like I said, we very much promote professional development with our people. We need to practice what we preach.
Agree. And just, so it's great to bring it back to board member reports, but here's the problem. It's always at the end of a school board meeting, and it is oral, and it's not something that I can take back and chew on for a while. And so sometimes I don't get, that's me personally, and I'm guessing other people might have the same issue. So I look to, legal, hey, let's figure out a way that either, if we post it somewhere where it's public as well, that's fine, where we don't just comment on it, but I mean, the public's paying for it, so they might as well know what we're doing as well. Let's get it out there so that we have a standardized format of a trip report, or, hey, every 2 weeks, this is what my professional development entailed, something to that nature.
I like it. Mr. Susan.
One of the things that I was looking at was to give, like when I received this packet and everything else, was how do I get it to you guys? What I may do is get with staff and say if we can have a shared folder where we put some of these things so that you can pull them up. And that would really work out really well, so that if there was something that I wanted to report or something that I wanted to say, that you guys could pull it, besides sending an email tree around in circles.
Tammy has put together a board hub for us, and that may be the appropriate vehicle for that information to be shared, and then just a notification could go out to take a look at the hub. I would think maybe that would be the easiest way, since it's already established, as far as circulating information like that. And we can look at a public report on PD progress through legal means. So what I need at this point is direction as to where we go. Mr. Susan, it sounds like you are not prepared to commit to membership in the Florida Coalition of School Board Members at this point in time?
No, I would, but I just didn't want it to, one, come out of my travel budget. Two, I wanted to make sure that we could join other organizations. There's just a couple of things on the table. So if we want to go ahead and say, okay, we'll approve moving forward with these organizations, I'm all for that. But I just wanted kind of the details to be worked out so that we don't, there's a memorandum of understanding between all of us what we're going to do.
Okay, so I need...
If I may, our FSBA dues don't come out of our individual, so this, I don't believe this should either.
And I would not argue that point with you, I would agree. The challenge that we run into, and I don't think it's an insurmountable challenge, but a challenge that we need to take ownership of and provide direction on, our FSBA dues are paid through July for all 5 board members. Prior to this year, we've paid for all 5 board members. So in July, when we're up for renewal, if only 3 of us want to join, then we can divide that cost by 5 and only pay for 3 of us. In the coming budget year, we have more flexibility as to making decisions about how to cover these dues and what we want that money to look like, be earmarked for, that sort of thing. In the current year, what we have budgeted, the FSBA dues were paid out of that budgeted amount for the entire board, and then each of the individual board members has their travel and their dues budget. So right now, the money allocated for each individual board member for travel and dues is $1,922. There is no membership allocation in this budget year because it was spent on our FSBA membership. So, like I said, I don't think it's an insurmountable challenge, but I think it's definitely something that we need to provide direction on, Dr. Blackburn.
Perhaps, and Mr. Beislein, correct me if I misstep, perhaps there could be a motion to direct the superintendent to allocate for this year additional funds for this membership, and then when we're looking at school year 17-18, like you said, we can look at the wishes of each board member and then allocate for the 2 organizations accordingly. But I would imagine.
I think that's a great solution. Actually, the law says that that if a board member does not want to join a particular organization, then you shall prorate you can't pay for all 5. You have to prorate it out.
Yeah,
for
but
board members.
that was because of the year, though, right? So that came into effect on July 1st,
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So that's where I think the issue
Yeah,
comes
but
in.
no, I think what the superintendent's idea is a great one, and you could allocate the additional funding for a board member that wishes to join this other organization, because that's current, that's right now.
Can I get a prorated refund on
Did you
Amy's slot?
already pay?
Well, they
We
paid for Amy's slot for, you
Oh.
tried to get a refund?
We tried.
No, you're not going to get a refund from
they
them.
won't prorate
See, we
for this
paid
year.
for it before the law changed.
Right.
Well, in other districts, a few other districts in the state, they've decided to wait after election cycles, by the way, before they pay their dues for reasons, since the law changed. So it might be something we look at too in the future.
I think Dr. Blackburn's suggestion is a good one. You could take care of this particular thing right now.
Yeah, I would think, I don't think we need a motion to give him direction to bring back a modification. It's when the modification comes back that we would then vote on it, so. Well, we have to have something specific.
I don't think we have a.
I think a motion right now to direct Dr. Blackburn to do just what he said would be sufficient. You can go ahead and allocate the money for this purpose. I don't think you need to bring it back at the next meeting, if that's what you're saying.
Yeah, we would have to, but we don't know what we're specifically.
Harold, can you,
I think
can you
that's the
state it?
direction we need to
Can you
provide.
give it, can you give us a statement?
Yeah, make a motion and have to direct the superintendent to allocate sufficient funds out of the budget, there's, money's there, for the purpose of funding a board membership, or two, to this additional organization.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I would like to say that if your choice is one or the other, that's fine, but I don't think you have to make, I suspect that they both have some different great opportunities. As a matter of fact, I'm going to connect with Sean Frost as the chair of the coalition. I want to make sure that we have some alignment. I understand what their legislative priorities are, because the more of us that are aligned, the more successful we're going to be. So I would hope you'd both consider FSBA additionally.
It sounds like I'm already a member till next July, anyway, so.
Was that direction clear, Dr. Blackburn? Are you comfortable with where we're going there?
Very much so.
Excellent. Okay. Do you have a superintendent's report, Dr. Blackburn?
I do. As a matter of fact, FADS, report from FADS, just last night, I'm sorry I wasn't able to brief the board, but just last night, we received our final copy of our legislative platform for FADS. As the board knows, I sit on the executive board of FADS, and I'm on the legislative platform committee. So we threw around several versions of it. We worked on it when we were in Tampa a couple of weeks ago, so now it's final. We've been asked, every superintendent is asked to share it publicly, so I'll definitely share it with the board and find an appropriate place, if it's the will of the board, to insert it into our conversation with our local and state leaders, so we can have additional conversations about that. A few updates. Last week, December 5, Mr. Ziegler and I and Ms. Archer, several principals, attended a tour of Larson's Motorsport, and phenomenal exposure to what high-tech manufacturing looks like, and something that could be very engaging to our students. And then had an opportunity to visit Bayside High School, talk to Principal Moore, and the connectivity there between what's happening at Larson and what they're trying to accomplish at Bayside for manufacturing. Just a huge opportunity there, and so looking forward to additional conversation and connectivity. Mrs. Archer, I believe, had an opportunity to present Project 2018 to Larson, and they're on board. So I think they may be one of our inspired thinkers. Is that what you're calling them? Yeah. So they're on board to help us work through that. On that same day, Mrs. Belford and I met with leaders from the City of Titusville, YMCA, and school leaders in Titusville, just to talk about what our youth are experiencing before and after school hours, right? Some of the at times, some negative behaviors that happen outside of school that impact the learning environment. So looking at putting together some real collaborative efforts in that area of town in order to give students positive alternatives, right? And so more to come on that. December 7th, Dr. Reinhardt, Ms. Klein, Ms. Zucker, and I, at the expense of Chiefs for Change, an organization that I'm a member of, we were invited to Boston for a one-day meeting to meet with representatives from Chiefs for Change and a company called Education Resource Strategies. Basically what they do, they are consultants that help school districts and other entities become really, really efficient with their spending, primarily around distribution of dollars in an equitable way, much more equitable than we do right now, in that we basically look at the size of a school, the grade level of the student, the ESC category of a student, and ESOL, but looking at potentially many more categories that we can use locally to create equitable funding streams to schools. And like I said, that exposure opportunity was paid for or supported by Chiefs for Change, and we're having additional conversation with them to be able to support additional work in that area. And of course, it's been mentioned here several times, Cocoa High School state championship in football. Congratulations again to the Tigers. I was at Cocoa High School last week looking for Ms. Skipper back there. She was nowhere to be found, so we'll take care of that at some other time. Student Services update. It was mentioned briefly here, but Student Services conducted 3 evening focus groups meetings over the last month regarding our proposed discipline plan. And these participants of these meetings had an opportunity in small group settings to weigh in and provide feedback regarding the plan. Various principals and district level personnel assisted in facilitating. On November 16, 21 assistant principals attended a focus group. On November 30th, 85 teachers as well as 3 BFT officers were in attendance to a focus group. And on December 7, 45 attended the community focus group meeting with representation from parents, faith-based leaders, the NAACP, LGBTQ community, other community organizations, law enforcement, city officials, and the Latino community. And 2 of our board members, Mrs. Belford and Mr. Ziegler, were also in attendance, so we definitely appreciate that support. Tomorrow, I'm going to do something pretty weird and meet with all the Student Government Association presidents in the district. We're going to present that plan to students as well. I hope to make meeting with SGA students a regular part of our activity. So we're gonna throw the plan, have them chew on it as well tomorrow evening. And last but not least, well, a few things, but the board is well aware of our relationship with TNTP. We purchased the Insight Survey from them. We do a lot of teaching and learning activities with them. They are launching a comprehensive diagnostic designed to gauge our community engagement at both the district and the school levels. If they haven't already, they will be talking to each and every board member to get your insight, your take on where we are right now with community engagement, where you think we need to go, and also advice on what other individuals, groups that we should talk to in order to gauge our current reality. So look forward to that work. Financially, just in from our CFO, Fitch Ratings has affirmed the district's issuer default rating at AA with a stable rating outlook. Some of the contributions to maintaining the AA rating noted by Fitch included the district's stable unreserved fund balance of 8%, the district's conservative budgeting practices and policy, which have contributed to strong fund balance reserves, and the improving economy and resource base here in Brevard. So congratulations to us for that rating. Yay. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank members from the BFT, 1010, our district staff, for working on settling and then ratifying a contract. It's certainly not everything that we all want, but it was a good effort in putting our heads together. Appreciate the leadership from those organizations and continue to appreciate the push to do better and better and better. Happy holidays to everyone. Hopefully we get all of the R&R that we all need to recharge our batteries. And last but certainly not least, I want to take an opportunity to say farewell to some very valuable members of the leadership team. We have Dr. Reinhardt, who's at a board meeting over in Osceola County right now, being accepted as, I believe, Assistant Superintendent over high school education. We have Mrs. Irwin, who's accepted a job in the private industry. So congratulations to both of those. And we have Dr. Mullins, who's one of 7 finalists interviewing for superintendent in Lake County, Florida. Has anyone heard from Dr. Mullins back there? Okay, we'll get some input from him later on tonight. But congratulations to members of the team who've been invaluable as I transitioned into the county, and Godspeed on your future endeavors.
All right. Any other comments? Then I will officially adjourn this meeting.